Hey everyone, this is Nick from Whole Latte Love. Get to intro myself today for the first time. That's pretty nice.
Oh, wow.
I'm here with Zach. How you doing, Zach?
Hello. I didn't get to intro myself, but I never really do.
Well, you know, I think you got one more stream with Mark, so maybe you got one more chance.
Yeah, maybe we'll change some things up for y'all.
That's right. Well, welcome back to our Cyber Monday live stream event. So heat exchanger machines are right in between single boiler and dual boiler in terms of kind of being that intermediary step from entry level to full-on commercial prosumer. These are machines that can brew and steam simultaneously, and the heat exchanger is actually used in a lot of commercial machines as well. So we've got a spectrum of kind of performance and price from our own exclusive edition of the Profitec Pro 500 to the Bezzera Sole, and then lastly, the smart heat exchanger, the ECM Mechanika Max. So we'll be covering how all of these machines work, give you a general workflow, and then talk about maybe which one would be best for you. So we are live, so if you're watching right now, in those comments below, we see them. They're right on a little TV right below where I'm pointing, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions or your comments. So let us know if you have anything that you need further clarification on, or just wanted to know a little bit more about.
Or if you just want to say hi.
Yeah, you can say hi too. That's always nice. But, you know, Zach, let's start just with the first of the bunch. This is the Profitec Pro 500. Now, once you level up from a single boiler espresso machine into heat exchangers, that's when you might start to see variation in pump types. So of these three machines, the 500 is the only vibration pump machine. So Zach, tell us just a little bit about the difference between a vibration pump and a rotary pump.
So both of these are going to have a little bit of a different consistency during your extraction and also that initial extraction. So the way that it actually starts pressurizing your basket might come in a little bit of a wave when it comes to a vibratory pump in comparison to a rotary that might be a little more linear with that power output. Now you can come up with the same extraction either way with a little bit of trickery of your grind size, maybe even your tamp pressure. You can come up with really kind of the same extraction style between these two, and they do operate a little bit differently on sometimes longevity and sometimes its actual max capability of that pressure as well, but that's not something that we really look into, right?
Right, exactly. So, I mean, what you may see, especially if you wind up picking yourself up one of the press sensors, the Bluetooth pressure sensor that Zach has talked a little bit more at length about in a review video that we've done on those, is that initial pressure is typically in the flow will be a little bit lower before reaching that maximum output. And then if you're using a flow control device, the stock flow rate is actually going to be lower on a vibratory pump machine versus a rotary pump because it's just not moving that water as quickly.
Exactly. And when it comes to flow control, which you can actually see this 500's decked out with, sometimes on rotary you can have a little more control with that, but luckily with these you do still get so much control within your pre-infusion than during your extraction, and maybe some ramp downs, which are all techniques that you can utilize with this flow control. Again, I kind of go into more emphasis on the press sensor with that, but you know, an easy look down at the Profitec brew gauge here.
Yeah, this is the current style of the gauge too. We have different segments for pre-infusion, ramp up, and brew clearly delineated. Those numbers are indicating the bar of pressure. Will's going to show you that a little more clearly. Thanks, Will. And I'll see if I can do something with the studio lights.
I think it's kind of a pretty glow there.
Yeah, so you can see though, it's tough. You have the different bar of pressure as it ramps up. And well, if you want to bring us to the front of the machine actually, just down a little bit, I see on that camera right there. Perfect, stay right there. Yeah, so on our exclusive version of the Pro 500, excuse our splashes from dialing in, we have the PID actually visible above the drip tray, which is not on all Profitec Pro 500s. And then there's a setup with a dual gauge so that you have your steam gauge and your brew pressure gauge visible right in the front of the machine. So again, that's part of the Whole Latte Love exclusive version. And then we also include a free bottomless portafilter. Now, these are custom maple accents that you can purchase along with the machine from us as well. So if you're looking to deck that out with some premium wood accenting, that's available from us too. So obviously the touch points, the handles for the portafilters, the E61 brew lever, and then also those steam and hot water knobs. So Zach, what's really the key benefit of a machine like this? You can brew and steam at the same time, right?
Oh yeah, that's the best part about it. So if you're starting to get into maybe a faster morning routine is what you need in comparison to maybe a single boiler where you're waiting a lot of time in between waiting for that boiler to warm up. Well, this actually, utilizes that heat exchanger type boiler, so you can brew and steam at appropriate temperatures at the same time. So I can, start pouring some latte art, might get a little better at that, or just speed up my process in general.
That's right. So just to talk a little bit about how a heat exchanger works, you have a large boiler that's going to be supplying your hot water for your hot water wand and your steam for your steam wand. And then going through the center of that boiler is another tube connected to your brew group, and that's going to be full of your water that you'll use to brew your espresso. So what that means though is that you're controlling a temperature to heat the boiler, generally speaking. So if you look back at our PID again, you'll see on that display the boiler is set to 249 degrees. In the manual for the Profitec Pro 500, you will see a chart that converts the total temperature value to the anticipated brew temperature. So on the Pro 500, 248 is going to land you right around 200 degrees for that brew temp.
Yeah, so we're relying on simple thermodynamics, basically.
That's right.
The outer is going to warm up the inner, and the outer can afford to be a lot hotter than the inner.
That's right. So Zach, let's cover a few things. I'll have you start prepping a shot, but then what I want, so this machine's been idling, heating, waiting for us for a while. So Will, I want you to take us to the group actually, because since the heat exchangers are controlling for steam temperature and not necessarily brew temperature, what that means is that occasionally you can get some brew water in that tube that gets just a little too hot, and that causes what's called flash boiling. And you can take care of that. Well, first of all, you can see it. If you lift this lever and the water is cloudy and bubbly, then you want to do a cooling flush. And so there's just a little bit of bubbling there, really not a whole lot, but you run that pump for about 15 seconds and you'll purge out all that extra hot water. Clearly that was not too bad. Profitec engineered the thermosiphon very well on this machine. So the thermosiphon, if you're not familiar, that's the circulation of water from the boiler to the group and then back to the boiler again. So, and Zach, what have you got there?
So I'm going to stay as consistent as possible throughout all of our grinding processes and puck preparation. So here I actually have the bows, which if you've been following along with us today, I've been using quite a lot because of its consistency. I've already had it set at the appropriate amount of depth. I have it set to 2 tamps for me. So I've really been enjoying this thing for that consistency.
Incredible. So Zach, I'll have you go ahead then, we'll pull a shot, but let's get you some milk prepped too. So here's the Profitec frothing pitcher for you. I'll get you locked in. And then just a little explanation on this machine as well. So the Pro 500 uses what are called quarter turn valves. That means, if you want to come up to the valve here, Will, you don't actually have to turn it all the way. So right now I have it in position, but if you notice, I can continue turning toward closed. So there's play here. And what that means is that you can just very simply open and close the valve. There's a spring inside that's providing tension, and that's actually sealing that valve so that you don't have to twist it and crank it all the way closed, which can strip that.
And what's really great about these sorts of valves, especially if you start getting into latte art, sometimes this is a little bit more preferable too than the quicks, just because I have so much control on my steam pressure. Now, this is a very particular sort of thing. I just do like these kinds of valves. It might be more of a personal preference because, those quick actions as well that you'll see on other machines are super nice.
And so for our flow control, we want to go 1 1/2 turns for a vibratory pump to get to stock flow rate. We've got our Varia AccuMini scale in Accu Pro mode. Will, perfect. Go ahead, Zach. And there we go, we're looking good. And we're gonna be looking just for that 1 to 2 ratio here. And now Zach has me doing a little barista assist, but at home, very easy. Just have your other free hand. Stop your shot when needed. Oh, 36.03. I was maybe just a tiny drop above, but so we'll bring it back up front here. If you want to get us with the overhead, we'll see. I know I have been striking out on my latte art pours today. Zach, I think that you can do a little bit better.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. You know, this was a new pitcher to me. You know, I'm making all these excuses, but we'll see what's going on.
These are the new Profitec Pro cups as well, available in 2 sizes. They come in sets of 4, and this is the Pro cappuccino cup.
All right, so I'm just gonna work my milk here, work that espresso, and take control here. What should I do? Let's pour a little something, something.
Yeah, pour a little something.
We'll see. We'll see what goes on. A little light with my foam, but a nice little rosetta.
Very nice little rosetta, yeah.
It's kind of cute, you know, in a little way.
So heat exchanger machines are really great for people who want to drink those milk drinks every single day, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because what you lack on a heat exchanger is obviously the extreme power of a dual boiler or the extreme precision. And so a single boiler machine, for instance, can get you that brew temperature precision that you want, but you can't froth all the time.
Exactly.
So the heat exchanger is nicely balanced between the two. But I would say that this is definitely the kind of machine that you would get if you enjoy milk drinks every day, and likely too if maybe you're going to be brewing with blends, for example, and you're going to have a coffee that's going to be fairly consistent, because that brew temperature control is obviously going to need to be balanced against your steam pressure. So Zach, obviously you're used to working with machines that have a lot higher steam pressure, and you could get higher on this machine, but then your brew temperature is going to be indirectly raised as a result as well.
Exactly, but as you can see, we still get perfectly good results off of that. We'll see if there's any different results comparison to maybe our Bezzera over there, which does have a little bit of a different material being used within there, famous for Bezzera.
Yeah, Bezzera, they prefer, if you want to get that overhead shot going there, well, that looks very nice. Bezzera prefers to use copper as their boiler material of choice, whereas Profitec, generally speaking, are going to be using stainless steel, with a few exceptions like the Go, and then also the Profitec Move, which uses a Go boiler for its brew boiler, and then a stainless steel steam boiler. So Bezzera, though, just to give you a little bit of history, they are the holders of the original patent for espresso machines. So it's a 4th generation family company started by Luigi Bezzera. His first machine from 1901 is where they get their logo and their little slogan here, Bezzera dal 1901. So they have that on a lot of their stuff, but really Bezzera is a truly Italian brand. So Profitec, they are a German company. Their machines are made in Germany. Bezzera, they're made in Milan. So that Biscione serpent that you see here on the front, let's see, well, actually, you're seeing a little too much of my head, a little too little of that serpent there. That logo is very common in Milan, and let me get out of the way there, for products of Milanese origin. So there we go, perfect.
Oh, nice.
If you've watched our videos, you've probably seen Mark posing with the serpent. We found it at a castle when we went there, but basically that's the Biscione, and this machine has that on full display. It's also featured on the steam and hot water gauges, just like that Pro 500. The Bezzera Sole here has dual gauges, both with that Italian flag coloring. So if you're really looking to go all in, we call it sort of a retro modern aesthetic that Bezzera is going for. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of a retro aspect to any company that's been around for more than 120 years, I'd say. Wouldn't you, Zach?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And with those wooden accents, I would definitely say it would pair well with kind of a mid-century sort of vibe at your house.
Well, and you know, this is, we're going to take some of that German influence, actually, because these are provided by Wiedemann, so these are oak accents on the Sole. So one thing I really want to mention, the Sole, as far as our website is concerned, that's a machine that's got probably more customization than almost any other. It's available with 4 housing colors. You've got 5 different woods. Actually, no, 4 woods, soon to be 5. But right now, you also have the option for flow control. I think there's 40 unique configurations that you could get for your Sole. So a machine that you could really customize for yourself. So the housing colors, obviously we have the traditional stainless steel that you see here, but the Sole is also available in matte black, matte white, and then a sage green color as well. That's
My
really
favorite.
very cool.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that Bezzera will eventually make sage green panels for other machines as well, because that's sort of how they've done things. I'd love maybe like a sage green Aria or a sage green, you know, BZ10. Those I think would look pretty cool too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the color choice that I would kind of choose. But you know, if you have any questions about any of those mix and matches, we have a huge bundler actually on our website that you can actually see that in real time with the different pairings of different wood textures and the different colors, all of that in real time with cool kitchen backgrounds. And if you have any questions on that, please feel free to call our sales team. They're kind of just there to help too. They know this stuff like the back of their hand.
Perfect.
So
yeah, so going back to our Sole though, very straightforward. I want to get close up on that PID wheel because Bezzera actually in their heat exchanger machines they do things a little differently. So you'll see that says 200. Obviously that's 40 degrees cooler than we saw on our, 48 degrees cooler than we saw on our Profitec Pro 500. Truth of the matter is that is a predicted brew temperature. And the actual boiler temperature is much hotter because it's producing steam just like the Profitec Pro 500. Now, what that means is this machine is predicting brew temperature, but you still may want to do a little cooling flush. So, well, let's see if we can't see that flush this time. Actually, Zach, I'm gonna have you iPhone it so we can really get up close and personal and see how that looks, just so you guys can get a sense for what are we doing when we're running that cooling flush here. So, actually, we may need a, oh, there we go.
we got it.
Perfect.
Guessing the password here, yeah. All right.
All right, so get us right underneath. So there's our group, and as we run the pump, you'll see that steam and that very volatile stream there. That's just a little bit of what we call flash boiling. Now we've got a solid clear stream again, and we're ready to extract. So yeah, this machine has obviously been idling for quite a bit as we've been talking and prepping between streams. Now, do you have to perform a cooling flush every single time? The answer is no, you don't. Especially when you're first heating your machine up in the morning, you're not necessarily going to be giving that water too much time to overboil because a lot of that initial energy is going to be used to heat all the other components. Your boiler's typically hot enough first, then your brew group and your portafilter. But if you've got your machine up to temp, maybe you've made your first shot of the day, say you work from home or you've got something else going on where it's the weekend, you go do some chores, you come back, you're gonna wanna just run a quick cooling flush just to make sure that the boiler and the brew water temperature is good to go.
But say you're the kind of person that just wants that one shot to start your day and you're done with that, well, you might not have to worry too much about that.
Well, and if you're gonna do just one shot though, I'm gonna say the Bezzera Sole, you've got a 2-liter copper boiler in here. This was a machine that was upgraded from the Bezzera Magica. That's where it took its original inspiration from. Although obviously now we have a plumbable rotary pump, so I don't know if you could hear the difference there, but it's just a nice gentle whirring that you get when this machine's running. But it's really made for capacity, right? So between just the ability to froth and produce a lot of hot water because of that large boiler and the ability to plumb into that water tank, which I know is one of Mark's, or plumb into the reservoir, one of Mark's favorite features, so you never have to refill the machine again. The Sole is designed, I would say, really to handle a lot more use. And if you're thinking about that in terms of, you know, what has more capacity for back-to-back, the copper in here too, as Zach mentioned, is actually a material that Bezzera really prefers. So copper versus stainless steel, typically it's going to heat up a little bit more quickly, and the stainless is going to resist corrosion a little bit easier too, and it's a little harder to work with. So Bezzera, they're one of the few companies that actually makes a lot of their own components. I've seen in their factory some of their smiths hard at work actually producing boilers that wound up getting put into machines like this one.
Yeah, and you'll see really during that actual milk steaming process that you see a good difference between the two boilers. So specifically this one, you know, it's based off of a 2-hole design on that steam. And that really kind of directs that whirlpool really well. And as you're actually steaming, it really keeps that heat super well during that extraction process. So we'll actually kind of see that in real time. There might be a little bit of a time difference too. It might speed up my actual milk frothing process than maybe the whole duration of my shot. So
I'll take that Bose tamper, and then I'll froth. Why not? Oh, there we go.
Oh, you're gonna froth this one.
I'm gonna froth. Yep, I'm gonna try to redeem myself. This might be my last froth of the day, but
I'll pour your milk for you. How about that?
And there we go. Nice and tamp. That's looking great. We are stretching a little bit, trying to fit all 3 different portafilters on our grinder of choice today. That's the Eureka Atom W65, an incredible grinder, really fast, great fluffy grounds, to be honest with you. The only thing is, these portafilters are all different heights, so we have to kind of use the funnel as an equalizer to make sure that they all fit and get teared out.
All right, which cup are we going for?
Let's go with the broader cup in this case. Yeah, these are the Bezzera logo cups.
Yep.
Yeah, this was all a recent sort of rebranding, so you have a much more intense Biscione logo on there. We'll just leave that on. The cup's going to tear automatically, thank you to that Spro mode. And yeah, we're going to do a little frothing.
Awesome. If you want, I can go ahead and switch you, so I can go ahead and pull your shot, and we can get this all in our shot here.
I'll pull it if you want, but
Okay,
basically
cool.
what we can do is...
Maybe I'll actually get a little iPhone shot of you doing this.
I'm just letting the scale settle there. There we go. So lift lever, start steaming, and really depending on how much milk you're using, how strong your steam pressure is, and how quickly the machine's going to get that heated up, I feel like generally you finish frothing milk before you finish brewing. There we are, 1 to 2, 1 to 2.1, you know. Acumany's going to keep you honest when it comes to did you hit that ratio or not. I'm going to work that milk. But brewing and steaming at the same time, not too difficult, but it can take a little bit of getting used to. I don't see any questions or comments yet, but if you need anything explained again, just let me know. No explanations for my pour that I'm about to have here.
Working out a lot of bubbles there.
Yeah, you know.
It happens.
I just feel like we got a lot of foam, but not enough incorporation there.
Nope. All right.
Yeah, so a little bit of a disaster there. So, Zach, I'll take that towel when you're all done with it. Let's go back to the Sole, though, because in terms of operation, the machine's actually very, very straightforward. So, there's not any kind of sophisticated programming involved with this machine. Simply put, that PID has the ability to double as your shot timer. Press the minus button, you can change the temperature. And then once we get out of that menu, you'll see you also have the ability to change between Celsius and Fahrenheit. And that's it on the Sole. So if you're somebody who wants the machine to wake up with you in the morning, that's where you'd probably want to grab a auto timer. Get this plugged in, leave the power on, and then it's going to switch on in the morning and just start heating for you automatically.
Yeah, some of those even connect to your phone even. So lots of very simple tools that, you know, reasonably priced and pair well with these machines as well. So don't let that sway you from actually getting this machine because it is amazing. And I like the simplicity of that.
Yeah, and you know, that's one of those things too. It has high capacity. You really should be plumbing it, especially if you're going to be spending that type of money on a rotary pump, because at that point you've got a machine that's always going to have a supply of water for you. You can always just turn it on and use it. There's never any refilling. You have the convenience of an inline water filter. So the Sole really is a great option for that. Now, Zach, obviously though, we've saved kind of the most advanced of these machines for last. This is going to be the ECM Mechanika Max, and they sort of, ECM that is, use the term smart heat exchanger to explain how this machine works. So do you want to take that, or do you want me to keep going there?
You can keep going. I'm going to go ahead and prep this puck for you. Switch spots.
We'll do a little dance here. I think that's a 20, maybe 21 gram basket. So just going back,
a little different. So I'm gonna go start prepping this here.
Yeah, back to our Atom W65 for a moment. You can actually program up to 3 different weight-based doses. So that's no problem at all to be able to switch. If you want to go right there, well, you'll see we have a 20 gram dose that we programmed on dose 3. And I do feel like that ECM dosing funnel looks best on a ECM portafilter. This is olive wood, by the way, so tricked out here. We have the Mechanika Max with the olive wood accents from Wiedemann. Now, a smart heat exchanger, let's explain what that actually means. So I'm gonna have you bring us around to our PID here, perfect. And you'll see actually that temperature says 205. So that is the brew temperature, right? So on the Bezzera, the expectation is that's sort of a predicted brew temperature. And on the Mechanika Max, we're actually doing things a little bit differently, because if we go into our PID menu, we'll see that we actually have a programmable T1. And you'll see we were at 201, so we were a little over. So what exactly does that mean? Well, on a heat exchanger espresso machine, you generally speaking will have a temperature probe, if you've got one with a PID, that's measuring a little higher in the boiler. It's taking the temperature of that steam, right? And that's what it's controlling for. Now, on the Mechanika Max, being a smart heat exchanger, and I'm just trying my best to get some of that smudging off for when we go back up close, ECM's done something a little differently, because inside the thermosiphon flow from the boiler to the group, there is an additional probe, and you can tell the Mechanika Max to either look at the temperature from the probe for the steam and hot water, or you can have it take a look at the probe for the thermosiphon. So if we go back, you'll see we're at 203. I can raise the lever here. We're doing a little bit of pre-infusion. And once that number clears, we'll see our brew temperature has changed. We've gone down to 200. So Zach, we're ready to go, because the temperature that we're seeing on that PID display here on the Mechanika Max, that is the actual temperature of your brew water. And again, that's because of the way that this machine is designed. You have a PID probe that's going to be taking actual brew temperature. And so that is very unique for a heat exchanger espresso machine. And so let's talk a little bit why might you get something like the Mechanika Max then? So similar machines in this price point, you'd have, say, something like the Profitec Pro 600, for example. Great machine, E61, just like the Mechanika Max, can do flow control, dual boiler, but you can't plumb, and it's a lot bigger. So something like our Mechanika Max here has the advantage of being very compact, but also gives you that control to be very precise. And then when you go further up the chain, when you're considering a full bar, and maybe you want to leave a little bit of room in your budget for something like our W65 here, well, the Mechanika Max is going to give you a little bit more breathing room when it comes to figuring out how you can put all your equipment together. So let's go ahead and let's pull that shot, but the Mechanika Max is definitely the most precise of our heat exchangers. And the thing is too, if while extracting you press up on the up arrow there, that's going to boost your steam power.
And I'm already at temperature with that,
Yeah.
so.
And it's like I've said, generally speaking, you're going to finish frothing before you finish your extraction. Now, you may have noticed a little bit of a delay on this machine. So the Mechanika Max has a lot going on. So first of all, there are 2 forms of pre-infusion that you can use on this machine, but let's let Zach pour first, and then I will get back into that.
All right, let's see if we can get a nice overhead.
There we go.
Really nice texture on this one. It might have gone a little too thin, but we're gonna find out. This is also not the typical cup I pour latte art in, but it still does well.
All right, let's see what we got. Yeah, this is one of the Quinto cast. I believe this is, they call it the coffee mug.
Just a little cute tulip thing.
Very nice.
Did go a little thin on this, but still an amazing texture that I got off the foam here.
Yeah. So this machine, just like the Bezzera Sole, can either be run from the water tank or from your home water line. Now, depending on that, there are actually two pre-infusion modes that you can use. There's what's called active pre-infusion and passive pre-infusion. So active pre-infusion, you're going to use that when the machine is in reservoir mode, because what's happening is the pump is actively running. So if we come back up to the machine, well, oh wait, let's get this out of
Dirty
here
puck.
before I make a mess. So that's right.
I'm leaving you my messes. That's what's happening.
No problem. When we lift this lever, you're going to see on the PID those bars going across. So you can actually program a duration inside the menu for how long you want that to run. And you can also program a pause to count down. So that would be our initial pre-infusion, and now the pump has just gone on. The other form of pre-infusion available on the Mechanika Max is purely what we would call passive pre-infusion. And so that means that if you're plumbed into your water line, you're simply going to raise the lever, the pump will not engage, and then the pressure from your home water line pushes the water from the boiler into the group and pre-infuses your coffee.
Yeah, which is usually going to be right around 2 bar to 3 bar or so. So perfect for pre-infusion. There's a lot of people that prefer that, but if you aren't plumbed in, the pump does just as good, honestly. I've tested both, and both provide such a nice kind of pre-saturation and pre-infusion to that. And for those who might not know what saturation or pre-infusion is, it's really just kind of soaking that coffee before your extraction. Now, there's a lot of different benefits behind that, which I highly recommend checking out some of our dialing in videos where we go really in depth with that, and even in those press sensor videos, which are very much compatible with these machines, where I talk about some crazier profiles that you can do with that.
So let's get a little bit deeper into the programming on the Mechanika Max, because just because you can tell the machine to use your brew water temperature to control boiler heating, you don't necessarily have to. And when it comes to using that brew temperature control mode, or BTC, as we'll see in our menu for a moment, not all BTC modes are the same. So, Will, let's head back to our display. I want you to get real close as you can in this case. And I'm gonna take you in. So pressing and holding these two buttons right here, that's gonna be how we switch or get into that mode. Now if we look, we have what's called BTC. And we can be in 3 modes or off, BTC 1, 2, and 3. So I'm gonna be in BTC 2. So what does BTC 2 mean? So basically when you're in BTC mode, brew temperature control mode, you're telling the Mechanika Max that you want to prioritize heating based on the temperature in the thermosiphon. So the 3 modes, 1, 2, and 3, control heating. BTC 1 makes the boiler heat the slowest. So that means, generally speaking, you'll have the most time at your set temperature because the boiler is not heating too quickly. Now, the downside of that, of course, is that it may take a little bit longer to heat back up if you flush or if you brew or if you do something else. BTC2 is an average duration, average heating time, so that the machine will heat a little more quickly, so you gotta pay just a little bit more attention. BTC3, the boiler heats the fastest, and so it's the most likely to overheat, but at the same time, it will recover more quickly. So it really comes down to your preference. And I see we have a question from David. Is there an advantage for a flow control on the Max? And I would just say that the advantage for the flow control on the Max is really sort of the same as on any espresso machine with the E61, just that you can use pre-infusion in a way that's even more sophisticated than what the machine's capable of. So just to give you a sense, right, you do have active pre-infusion. If you didn't have flow control installed, that would just be stock flow rate pre-infusing for X amount of time. If you decided that you just wanted to use the flow control device, you can really restrict that initial incoming flow of water before ramping up to your full extraction flow. So it is just giving you a greater degree of manual precision over your extractions that the machines like this right now do not offer.
Yeah, and there is a whole other side of that shot too. So it's not only pre-infusion that we're concerned about with flow control. Sure, it's a different pre-infusion, but we're also concerned about the actual overall extraction.
That's right.
Right? So we can actually extract things at a lower bar of pressure. If it's particularly like a dense roast, like light roast, typically like that 6 bar, but you don't want to change your OPV. You know, that's totally sensible that you don't want to change your whole entire machine every single time.
Exactly.
You just utilize flow control. And then something like a ramp down is what I call it, where we're actually watching this coffee corrode inside of our puck, and as it's washing away, you know, it's not giving as much resistance, a lot more flow through, so we don't need as much pressure, so we start ramping down in order to create a little more flavorful cup in a way. So a little more body, less watery.
Yeah. And so that's BTC, flow control, pre-infusion, but let's just take a look at the machine now if you want to turn BTC mode off, because then ECM has come up with a solution for that as well. So we're going to go right back into our menu again, and I'm going to say in this case that I want to turn BTC mode off. So we'll go right in there, and we're going to say BTC turn you off, okay? So when BTC mode is off, the machine is instead, so I want you to actually go back to the PID, Will, because we want to take a look. Now you're seeing the actual boiler temperature, which is 254. Now, you can still, though, ask the machine to give you a little bit of an alert. So you have the ability to turn a flush reminder on or off. So the flush reminder says, hey, you still know, Mechanika Max, what the temperature is at that probe, okay? So RDY that we just saw, that means ready. That means, hey, if you've programmed 200, 201, for example, and the probe's reading 200, 201, it's going to tell you that you're ready to go. So what'll happen is, if the machine gets a little too hot, it's going to ask you to flush before you start extracting. And it's the same as on, for example, a Pro 500 or a Sole, but you are being alerted in real time that you should flush if you want to get as close to your desired temperature as possible.
Sounds pretty smart to me.
Yeah, it's very smart, yeah. And that's why it's a smart heat exchanger. And again, it's because you are actually taking actively the temperature that you would use to brew your espresso.
Oh yeah, definitely. So maybe we should actually touch too on, you know, who might want this machine more so than, you know, these other machines. So I feel like with this one, and it could be a discussion here, you might want a little more control, or you want to be told when to flush, or you want more control over how the machine precisely works. Right. I would start recommending something like this. I mean, it does actually, you know, come with a little more compact size too, and that could be another thing to touch on there, that it is a little more compact and very quiet at the same time.
Compact, quiet, and as I mentioned, very affordable too. So if you're looking for a rotary dual boiler, obviously you are looking at a different tier of pricing, and so Zach, you and Mark will be talking about that in the upcoming segment, but that's where you'd be in the ballpark of a machine like the ECM Synchronica 2. And in the difference that you'd spend on that versus your Mechanika Max, you could use that segment of your budget for a grinder, for example. So
which is largely important.
It's incredibly important, first of all, yeah. So the Mechanika Max is really a machine that's very flexible though, too. So if you wanna just sort of turn your coffee brain off and just use it for frothing milk and you make a lot of milk drinks, that's great. But if you wanna spend a little bit of time too and say, okay, well actually, I am gonna really try to hit the perfect extraction for these shots because maybe you invested a little bit more in some premium coffee, then yeah, you'd want that as well. And so I see, obviously we got a question from David on the height, including the cup rails. David, I'm gonna go grab
we did actually have a tape measure
for you.
Pretty close by, so we're gonna go ahead and grab that for you. So we can go ahead and measure maybe each one of these, because each one of these heights, as you can kind of see on the screen, they're relatively the same, with just the Max being a little bit more slim. Each one absolutely beautiful in between, but you know, we do start changing to an entirely different category as well when we start getting into the 500, which maybe I'll wait for Nick before really diving into the 500 so we can get that tape measure, which magically appears.
There we are.
Before our very eyes.
So, we are looking at, with that, just about 16 inches when you accommodate for the cup railings. Now, this is a question that was asked before, but if you want to take these cups off, Zach, on the underside of the cup tray, you actually can remove, there are some screws on the bottom, they can be removed with an Allen wrench, and then you can take the cup rails off completely. Now, two caveats to that. First of all, you lose your cup warmer, so your cups won't be nice and toasty. And the other thing is, obviously, you can no longer really remove this very easily because you have to kind of grab it from both sides and pick up, but the cup tray does get very hot, so you'd want to wait for it to be cooled down. Now, obviously, though, if you're plumbing and you're putting the Mechanika Max under some lower cabinets, that's the perfect opportunity to just remove those and have the machine powered up for you.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah, especially if you're trying to fit that underneath a cabinet of any sort. So we typically recommend that. And any questions that you have on that too, it's something that we can easily do within a Coffee Cast or a Barista Assist.
That's right.
Free options that we have to offer to kind of help you through anything like that.
Absolutely.
So, awesome. So I think we've covered a good amount of the Max here.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on to the 500 and who this might be for. Again, this is using a vibrational pump, right?
Yeah,
so this also
pump.
helps you save a little money also at the same time.
You're saving quite a bit of money, actually. So the vibration pump is much more affordable, obviously, than a rotary pump. So that is reflected in the cost of this machine. Profitec Pro 700 had a rotary pump. The Drive now has a rotary pump as well. Very straightforward, though. We have eco mode, which you can use to have the machine power off after a set amount of time. But that's it. But yeah, so the 500 is, I would say, just a really stable, well-made machine. So that's something that I think we do need to really emphasize here is ECM Profitec. They have the German engineering behind these machines. They ship on one-piece frames. They're very, very solid. So the 500 for us has just been a very dependable sort of entry point into home heat exchanger machines. So if you're looking for something to kind of cut your teeth on, maybe you aren't super sure about going all the way into the espresso hobby, something like the Mechanika Max maybe intimidates you a little bit. That's where the 500, I think, is just a great middle ground. It's a kind of timeless look to it, the kind of classic, just all steel exterior. You've got more traditional paneling on the housing there. And then, of course, obviously, the PID to round things out with that shot timer. The Sole, on the other hand, is kind of going to be the opposite of the 500. It is going to be a little bit more in the kind of extremes of style. This is the most conventional configuration with these stainless, but once you start to get into, for example, the white or the green is where the black frame down here and the legs start to contrast very nicely for a good mix of materials and colors. And then with those wood accents as well, you're starting to get into that real premium look and feel on this machine.
These feet are so unique too. I really love that kind of Moonlander style that they went with on this. I feel like it's a very unique, again, kind of goes with that like mid-century touch, mid-century modern, especially with maybe the greens as well and a lot of wood components to that. It's just absolutely beautiful. You know, I'd be pretty good at convincing my partner on that, going with my aesthetic. So